starts in a pose called banana pose. So in a moment, I'll come down to the floor, but I want you to allow yourself to ease down. I'd have your head at the other end of the mat, away from the screen if you were. And the banana pose, if you haven't done it before, is we're going to elongate the body along the floor. So the hands are above the head, and we're just taking hold of the left wrist and easing the body into a side bend whilst we're on the floor. And then we'll take the feet over as well. So when we shuffle the feet over, we'll get a little bit more of a bend. And if you want to, you can then cross one leg over the other very gently. And the idea is that you keep your shoulders and your hips flat on the floor. So we're going to hold that for about 4 minutes or so. So allow yourself to come into that. Just roll down gently. Allow the hands to lengthen out. So I take usually a few breaths here before I lengthen my legs out. And the only reason I do that is that my back muscles tend to be permanently tight, which is why I do lots of yoga. And I know I need to respect my spine and those muscles that run down the back. So just taking a moment to let the shoulders relax down, and then I can lengthen my legs out. Down the center line of the mat, I'll take hold of my left wrist, and just wriggle the shoulders over to the side of the mat. Allow myself to drop the hands down. So it's quite a big stretch down through the armpit. When you're ready, you can take the feet across, and you'll know whether you've gone too far. You'll start to feel a little bit of a pinch in the side, so you want to be just a little bit less of that. Remember to keep the shoulders and the pelvis on the ground. And then, if you wish to, you can just cross the ankle. Now, you might find when you cross the ankle over that starts to pull on the sciatic nerve a little bit too much in the spine. And if that's the case, then you just bring your foot back. You don't have to take it all the way. So some of us are going to look like big banana curves, and some of us are going to have fairly straight banana curves, whichever. So having been here now for a minute or two, you find that the body relaxes into shape a little bit more. And just check that the jaw is nice and loose, maybe licking the lips. And then we'll be quiet. See where the breath comes from. Now we'll take a last exhalation. On the inhale, untangle the legs if they're crossed. Start to bring them back into the center. And then very gently shuffle the shoulders back so that you think you're now in a straight line. You can bring the hands back alongside the body and just give the shoulders a little bit of a stretch out if that feels necessary to help the blood flow back into the fingertips. And then we're going to inhale the hands up to the sky, drop them over the head again, take hold of the opposite wrist, and shuffle gently the shoulders over to the second side. So allow yourself to take a few breaths just with the shoulders over, sort of getting used to the idea of side bend, seeing how the spine reacts to nerves, etc. And then very gently start to wriggle the feet over to the corner edge as well. Again, we take a good 3, 4, 5 breaths here, letting the body kind of absorb the shape that we're moving into. And it's important to realize that the shape that we achieve on one side of the body can be very different to the other, and that's perfectly normal if it's happening. And then if you want to, you can think about crossing the legs over. Now this time we'll make a little bit more effort to see if we can get the breath to come from low down in the diaphragm, in the belly. So that area between your belly button and your pubic bone is where we want the breath to start. And see if we can gently fill into the lungs over a very long, slow breath so the ribs have time to stretch. And the exhale, equally as long. It doesn't have to be a super big breath. It's more about the speed that's important. Using that soft, slow, considered breath to slow the mind down as well. Then we'll begin to untangle the legs and bring them back to the center. Bring the shoulders back and let the hands come back down by the side of the body. And then we're going to draw the feet in towards our bottom, and we're going to come into the pose that we probably know and recognize as happy baby, where it's called stirrup pose in the yin practice. So we take the knees apart, slide the hands down the shins, and if it's easy to take the hands around the outside edge of the feet, great. You keep the knees low and wide, and then just raise the sole of the foot gently towards the sky. Now for some of us, actually, it's more important to hold on to the ankles and the shins. And the reason we do that is that we want to keep the spine very flat to the floor. So if you find that lifting that a little bit further up means that your tailbone lifts away from the floor, you just take hold of the ankles, and we're working on letting the hips open. So that's primarily our objective in this pose. You're just letting the weight of the legs and the arms draw everything down. The feet are wider than the shoulders, probably in my case nearly as wide as the mat. And the feet would be nearer towards the bottom than they would towards the face. Now we'll release the feet very gently back down to the floor. And I'm going to take my bolster, which could be a rolled up blanket. And for me, I'm going to put it on my left side. So it's about sort of halfway down the mat, around about the hip area. Put the arms out wide. I'm going to shift my hips over to the right and lengthen my left leg out. I'll bring my right foot on top of my left thigh, and then I'm going to let my body turn over towards the left side, so the knee comes down to there, and my shoulders stay on the ground. Once I've arrived, I'm just going to move that block bolster around so that it's supporting the shin and the ankle. And just letting the shoulders relax down to the floor. Again, I'm trying to find some space to breathe easily into the belly. Diaphragm twisted, it does make it a little bit more of a challenge. Now, if you find that when you lean over, the bolster and your leg don't really touch, you can always stack that block back underneath or on top, so it gives you even more height. We try and let the shoulders relax down and see if that will then in turn let the hips relax a little bit as well. So looking around or feeling around the body for spaces where we are holding on unintentionally, and then see if we can consciously breathe in and soften that area. And we'll slowly roll back. Now bring the hips back into the center line of the mat. Take your bolsters and blocks, paraphernalia over to the other side. And lengthen the arms out. Shift the hips over to the left. And lengthen the right leg out. Bring that left foot on. Roll the body over. Provide some support for the shin, knee, and the ankle. And let the shoulders relax. Now you'll notice that when I said shift the hips over, there was no distinction of how far that needs to be. It's more important, I think, for that to be an intuitive movement, because you'll understand how far you want to take that twist into the spine, into the middle back, around the thoracic area. we'll gently untangle ourselves. See how that feels just for a breath or two. And I'm going to gently roll onto the right side of my body and use my hands to press into the floor. Carefully lift myself back up. And we're going to come into a pose called deer pose. So we're going to need the block underneath the bottom. So I'm going to turn side on so it's just a little bit easier to see, hopefully. So we start with the legs out in front. And we take the left leg underneath and out to the side of the right hip. And knees pointing forwards. And lean out to the left side. Draw the right foot back. And just lay the shin down in the arch of the foot. So it makes a natural home for it. So my right knee is down on the floor as well, and the toes are pointing back. Now the hips at this point are kind of tilting over to the side. So I'm going to try and draw the right hip down and left hip up a little bit. So then my spine can sit nice and tall. Now if you're struggling with that, use your hand to press into the finger just to help draw yourself back. But do continue to draw this high hip bone down so that you're as balanced as you can be. It's called deer pose. And if you are tight in the hips, it's a strong pose. And we'll release. So it's going to lean out to the right side again so I can lift the knee away, lengthen the legs out, and then I'm going to take it to the opposite side. So that right leg comes under and out to the outside of the hip, just the outside of my block as well. Lean over, draw the left knee back, place the shin in, have a little wriggle around, find your happy place. And then again with those hips which are tilted over, and it might be quite a different story on one side to the other. Hips aren't symmetrical in most people. Like 98% of the population of the world have got one hip that sits higher or further round. So it's going to feel different from side to side. It's almost like the people that have got perfectly symmetrical hips are the odd ones out. It's another way of looking at it. And then we'll let ourselves release from there. And we're going to take a pose called caterpillar pose, which if you're sitting on a block, and then take your bolster or your rolled up blanket and just put it behind the back of the calf muscles with the legs out in front. And this stops us pressing down too much accidentally into the knee joints, and also means that we've got a little bit more space in the hamstrings as well. Now, normally a forward fold would involve you trying to sort of bring the hips over the top of the thighs, but in this case, caterpillar is more of a rounded back event. We're trying to get the biggest curve in the spine we can, including tilting the pelvis back a little bit. So what we're going to do is try and drop the chin in towards the chest and then straight down to the floor and let the spine round from there. Now we can take the hands wherever we want to go. So sometimes it'll be sitting on the bolster, sometimes sitting on the thighs, letting the head hang down. And it's a really acute rounding of the back. So breath-wise, it's going to happen into the back of the ribs. We're trying to let the muscles in the neck lengthen out. You might find that when you come into this pose, for some unexplained reason, the feet want to roll out to the side. If that happens, let that be the case. And we'll slowly use the hands to bring ourselves back as we exhale. So a nice even move back up. So it creates a big compression on the discs on the front side of the spine and opens out the back. So it creates a case of osmosis. So all the nutrients that are built up and need to be expelled because they've been used get flushed out, and it allows them to come in. And it also stretches all the tiny muscles which between the attachments of the vertebrae, and you've got a fascia line down there as well, so it can feel quite burny down the back, but it's all okay. I'm going to take our next pose as half butterfly, so I'm just going to move that bolster out of the way. Take the legs out wide, and I'm going to bring in my left heel, bring my fingers forwards, take a little breath, roll over the hips. So this one is where the sort of a longer, flatter spine, and then taking the hands out and letting the spine round down. Now, as that happens, my hamstring tightens up, my knee lifts a little bit, and my foot rolls out to the side. All okay. You find that a little bit uncomfortable on the heel if you're not fortunate enough to be doing it on a carpet, then just allow yourself, if you have a blanket or a jumper, top maybe you've been wearing, you can just place that underneath the heel, just on the bony parts to give it a little bit of ease. Let the hands lengthen forwards and round the spine gently, the head drop. Now this is one of those ones where you really do notice you sort of hang out to the side a little bit. And if that's happening, that's okay. If you find it excessive, allow yourself to take the hand say if you're leaning out towards the left side, you take the left hand a bit further out so you can lean into the shoulder a little bit, and that will help support you. And then we'll slowly use the hands to walk the body back up. And we'll just sort of swap it over to the other side. So extend the legs out again, nice and wide. Draw the opposite heel in. Blanket, cushion, sweatshirt, whatever it was that you had under if you were using it. Hands come out in front. Take a breath. Hips fold over the thighs. Now it's going to feel very tight on the inside of that groin. Those abductors and adductors are going to work quite hard when we work into this. Let the chest come forwards, walk the hands as far forward as is comfortable, and then let the head hang. So the shoulders round quite a bit. And then we'll slowly walk the hands back in again. And then exhale. Take both legs out wide. And sitting up tall, we're going to turn the body towards the right knee. So we're going to try and line the heart and the knee up a little bit closer. So you take a little time to allow the body kind of adjusting in. And then we take the hands either side of the thigh and we fold over. So we're trying to lay the chest down onto that knee. Now, it may or may not get anywhere near it. Once you get to your edge, which will be relatively easy to understand where you found it, you can let the head drop a little bit more. Just a very slow movement, letting it release. Again, another one where the knee will tend to lift up quite a lot. And you can use that trick again of taking the far hand out a little further if you wish, but if you're able to cope with just rolling down and maybe hanging out to the side a little bit, that's great. And there is a tendency for, when we come to the right side, for the left sitting bone to lift off the ground a little bit. As we hold the pose, it starts to rebalance itself gradually. You can feel it drop. You might not get full balance of both sitting bones, but we're getting closer. We use the hands to ease ourselves back up. We'll turn the body back into the center. Just take the hands behind a little bit. Let the chest lift up, roll the shoulders back. Just giving the spine a little bit of time to allow the discs to settle. And then we're going to rotate towards that left leg. Again, take a little time. See how it feels. And when you're ready, bring the hands forward. Slowly come over the thigh. And finding the edge, just let yourself hold there for a couple of breaths. And then when you're ready, let the head hang. So dropping just that last little bit, but very slowly. And we'll start to use the hands to draw ourselves back up. Again, we take a little time to bring the body back into the center. And whilst that's happening, take the hands and scoop the thighs up a little bit so you can draw the knees in and the feet in towards the center. And this time you can allow yourself to draw the arms around the shin. And we had extension last time, so we'll go for flexion this time, just dropping the head, letting the spine round a little. We're going to lift up on the breath in. And we're going to move on to all fours towards the front of the mat. You want to be a couple of feet maybe from the front of the mat with the hands. The shoulders are over the wrists, and we're going to draw the knees together. We're going to take a little breath, and we're going to slide the right knee as far forward as we can between the hands, and slide the left foot back as far as we can. And then we'll come up onto the knuckles, so the thumbs point forwards and the hands are underneath the shoulders. And we're sitting on the heel, the knee is pointing forwards, bootlaces are down. We'll let the shoulders ride up a little bit around the ears, so rather than pressing away from the floor, we sink a little bit. But as they sink, try and let them widen out. They start to roll forwards, just pull them back a little bit. Let the belly completely relax and the hips sink down as low as you can let them go. This is called a sleeping swan, which I'm guessing a sleeping swan is supposed to be nice and still. Gently move out of that. Bring the hands back to the floor. Use the toes of the back foot just to walk the knee in forwards a little bit. And then slide the knee back. So come into that nice tabletop position with the shoulders over the wrists. Check the knees are on the center line again. Draw the left knee far as forward as I can. Walk the right foot back. So sitting down onto that heel, knuckles, and letting the chest sink through the shoulders. You can let the head drop or look forwards. It's really what feels better on your neck. Lengthen the back foot away as far as you can. And really work on letting that belly soften. So the reason that we ask for that is to look at the corresponding muscles on the other side of the body, which is the lower back. The more we can release the belly, the more soft we'll be able to get those back muscles to be. And ultimately, the more compression we'll get in the lower back. So again, just working on the discs, as we talked about before, but this time it's the backward movement. So it's actually, by doing the straddle poses and the half butterflies, etc., and the caterpillars, we've worked the discs in lots of different areas and different places through the spine. And then we'll start to lift again. So just using the toes of the back foot to come forwards, hands to the floor. And bring myself back up into tabletop. So I'm going to ask you to sit down on the floor and roll back down onto your spine. But in a moment, we're going to do something called the cat's tail. And it's one of the ones that's a little bit difficult to describe. And when you're lying on the floor, you won't have an option to lift up your head to see what's going on. So just to demonstrate, We come to the floor and lengthen the body out. And you'll notice that my knees are still high. I'm going to roll onto my right side and bring both hands over. Take a little breath from there. I'm going to lengthen the legs out down the line of the mat. And the top leg, I'm just going to place the big toe on the floor and take it forwards a little bit. So I want this to feel very easy. Its purpose is to keep my hips stacked on top of each other and keep me balanced. Then I'm going to bend the knee of the bottom leg and try not to let the knee travel forwards. I'm going to bring my heel and walk my foot in towards my butt. And then I'm going to take my top hand towards the back, find my foot, take a little breath, and then try to roll the shoulders gently down to the floor. It's called a cat's tail. Now, you might need to wriggle a little bit more once you get in there to move the hips around, but whatever you do very gently. And if you're able to, you look over to the opposite side. So that's the pose. You can see now why I said it's worth a little demonstration, because if you did try and look at the screen, you'd probably hurt your neck. So hopefully that was as clear as mud. I'll let you roll down onto the floor, keep the knees high. I'll take the arms out wide. We'll take a roll onto our right side first of all. Lengthen the legs out. Swing the top leg gently forward so the big toe's on the floor. Take a breath, and as we exhale, we're going to bend the knee of the bottom leg and bring the heel in towards the buttock. So you can use your toes to walk it in a little bit more. Now take the top hand over and let the shoulder open out a little bit so it's already starting to drop towards the floor. And then we're going to see if we can find our foot, which might require a little bit of an adjustment. And then roll the shoulder down. So at this stage, the big toe wants to be on the floor as the top leg. The bottom leg, the knee really wants to be pointing right down towards the bottom of the mat, away from your head. Another pose where it's important to find some softness in the belly. And then it kind of travels down through the legs and up the torso, across the shoulders. That's a theory. And we'll gently release. And carefully roll onto your spine and ease the heels back in towards the bottom. And then we'll roll the body over to the left side. Also to lengthen the legs now. Top leg swings forwards, big toe stays on the ground. Bottom leg lengthens out to a straight leg, and then we bend the knee and bring the heel in towards the buttock. Just use your toes to walk the foot in a little bit closer. Take the top arm over and behind as you roll your shoulders down onto the floor. And then see if you can find your foot and ease the heel in towards your butt. And if it feels good, you can roll the shoulders all the way down to the ground. Again, we'll gently release. And whilst you're still on the side, allow yourself to draw the knees in towards your body. So you can move yourself into a fetal position. And then very carefully use your hands to press into the floor to lift yourself back up to sitting. Great. So we're going to move from yin towards yang. We're going to bring the hands onto the floor at the front of the mat, and we're going to let ourselves stand up gently. So just bringing the feet in about hip distance apart, and then let the fingertips come onto the hips. Soft knees, draw the belly in, let yourself exhale with a flat back. We're going to take something called a rishi sequence, which requires us to, in my case, be at the front of the mat so I don't hit my lap above my head. And we're going to soften the knees over the toes. So it's important that the knees track where the feet point. You don't want them pointing out to the sides or into the center. Straight forwards like you're skiing. Although I've never been skiing, so that might not be right. I'm going to take the hands out in front and keep the softness in the knees. I'm going to take my left arm back. I'm going to draw my hand all the way to the back of the mat and just try and keep the hips and the knees pointing forwards. Now the breath in comes up as the hand lifts over the top. And on the exhale, the hands pass each other, and then I soften the knees and let my ribs come down to my thighs. Keep exhaling, letting the head drop, fingertips draw along the floor, and then float up towards the sky behind me. On the inhale, the hands start to come forwards again, and as the hands reach out in front, I sit down a little lower, draw the belly in, and then exhale finally to lift up, hands towards the sky. And I soften the knees over the toes, and taking the right arm back, I look down the fingertips towards the back of the mat. Inhale high, take a slow breath down, softening the knees, ribs and thighs touch, head drops, hands brush the floor, then lift towards the sky. We come forwards as I breathe in, sit back low, draw the belly in and drive through the legs evenly. Now we're doing it purposefully at a pace that works the muscle threads nicely, burns a little bit of heat, creates a bit of strength, and improves coordination and balance. So it's a pretty good pose to do. It also has a nice sense of calmness about it because of the speed that we work at. And soften the knees. Right arm comes back. Eyes gaze towards the fingertips. We lift up. Float down. Come forwards. Sit deep. Drive through. One last time. To the left. Up and over. Sit deep. Inhale forwards. Drive through the legs. And a last time to the right. Soften the knees. Eyes follow the hand as it goes back. We lift up. Come down. Sit deep. Drive through the legs to lift. Let the hands come out to the side and down. Just take a moment here to breathe, turning the palms forwards as you close the eyes. Now we're open the eyes, and I'm going to take a step to my left and just take the feet out nice and wide. Toes are pointing in slightly. And I'll take the hands out in line with the shoulders. I'm going to call this the star pose for obvious reasons. And I'm going to turn the toes of both feet towards the front of the mat and soften the front knee over the ankle so I come into warrior two. You take a little breath, turn the palm on the front hand, come into reverse warrior. Ease my way back, bring my hands in towards my heart. I'm going to straighten the front leg, turn the toes towards the side of the mat, and then bring the heels in and allow myself to squat down. I'm going to try to bring my bottom down to be about the same line as my knees. Hands in front, and then inhale, just lift myself up, goddess pose, pulsing version. Exhale, ease my way down, bringing hands in towards my heart. I'm actually trying to tuck the tailbone forwards a little bit. So the pubic bone moves forwards. And the spine is held long and high. Ease my way down. 2 more. Last one. Let me come back into that star shape. And turn the toes towards the back of my mat. Sink into my front knee for warrior 2. Turn the palm on the front hand up towards the sky for reverse warrior. I'll come back into my warrior 2. Straighten the front leg. Turn the toes to the side. Allow myself to bring the heels in. I'm squatting down into that goddess pose again, bringing the hands into the center. Inhale, lifting up. Hands through the heart. Sinking down low. Inhaling high. So it's just 5, but they are slow. Again, it gives us a little chance to get these thighs working together in a nice symmetric way, so that effort through both legs feels equal. We're building a neural pathway into the legs in a balanced way down both sides. Again, just working on overall coordination and balance. I'll bring the hands in towards the heart. Take the arms out wide again. I turn the toes to the front of my mat. Sink into my front knee. Turn the palm for reverse warrior. Come back into my warrior 2. And straighten the front leg and turn the toes, this time inwards, heels out. Hands come onto the hips. You draw the shoulders and elbows back. Draw the belly in. A little softness in the knee, but I'm going to try and keep the spine very long and flat. Ease myself down into the floor. Bring the fingertips onto the ground. Take a little breath. And then on the exhale, I'm going to hinge my hips over the thighs and let the head move like a pendulum down towards the floor. Trying to keep the elbows in about shoulder distance apart. I lift the hips towards the sky and squeeze the thighs together a little. We've got a few more breaths here. Belly is drawn in to help with the lift. Be conscious that the weight is even through the feet. I'll press into the fingertips and lift halfway. Lengthen the chest forwards and the tailbone back and soften the knees a fraction. When I feel ready, I'll bring the hands onto the hips and let myself lift with a very flat back, a little bend in the knees. Straighten the legs back out, take the hands out wide into star. Turn the toes towards the back of your mat, both feet. Sink into your front knee for warrior 2. Take your reverse warrior. Come back into your warrior 2. Straighten the bent knee. Turn the toes back into the center line of your body. Hands onto the hips. Shoulders and elbows back. slow bend down towards the floor. And this time we're going to bring the fingers onto the ground. Take a little breath. Let the hands be a little wider than the shoulders. And we're going to slowly walk the fingers forwards and try and get a nice line between the fingertips, the shoulders, and the hips. So the body is flat and long. You can press the palms into the ground a little bit. You can press the feet into the floor a little bit. I guess you could say this is an extreme version of down dog if you wanted to. So it is a forward fold. Pressing the feet down, the back of the legs will start to tremble a little bit. Muscles are trying to work out what's moving in what direction to keep us in the place. Legs are confused. Now I'm going to bring the hands back underneath the body. Again, lengthen the chest out, tailbone back, belly in. Soften the knees as much as you feel you need to. Bring the hands onto the hips. And slow lift up. Now, as you arrive, zigzag your toes back in towards the center. So it feels like you've got a pair of legs coming back. And then when you're ready, you can shake out the legs a little bit. And bring the toes together. But have a little bit of a gap for the heels so that bones of the ankles aren't touching. And then slowly take the arms up towards the sky on the breath in. Bring the hands in towards your heart and exhales down. You can do that 3 times, inhaling up. And a 3rd and final time. Now this time I'll bring the hands together so they touch. Interlace the fingers. Stretch the index finger to the sky. Take a little side bend over to your left. Come back to the center as you breathe in and take it over to the right. Come back into the center and let the hands gently come down side of the body. Shake everything out. Then come back down to the floor and take a little breath. You need to make sure that you've got your block towards the back end of the mat if it's somewhere else on the floor. And once you've done that, standing towards the front of the mat, hands come up towards the sky, into the heart, flat long back, soften the knees, the thighs lift, belly draws in, we fold over, stepping back into a down dog position, and just easing the hips back. So big stretch, and then we'll come into a plank, dropping the knees right down to the floor immediately. You want to let the feet go out to the side and sit gently back down onto our bottom. Take the legs out in front for Dandasana. So we can take the hands a little bit behind and bring the feet together so that the heels and ball joints of the toes touch. And then flex the feet back so that the big toe joint and the little toe joint feel like they're the same, or look like they're the same distance away from you. If your feet are sort of turning and pronating out, you need to turn the flesh of your thighs, which is not as easy to say as I thought it was going to be, and just turn them in a little bit. And that will bring the feet back into alignment. Press the sitting bones down, we take the hands just a little bit behind or in line with the hips, and then press down into the floor with the sitting bones, drawing the belly in, and really broadening out the front of the chest. You're trying to let these hip flexors, the muscles right at the top of the thighs, move towards your toes. And they'll want to go the opposite way around to that, so you have to really kind of connect your mind and your body to tell them, I want you to go that way. and relax. I'm going to take the block behind my bottom and then just lift myself up very easily. And as I do so, I'm going to bring my left heel in towards my groin for Janushasana. So I'm going to drop the knee down to the floor. If it doesn't happen to get to the ground, you take your bolster or your blanket and put it underneath the thigh. So you're moving the floor up and turn the thigh in towards the center. A little space into the knee, so bend, and then flex the foot back, and we'll bring the hands onto the shin. Draw the chest up, and we're going to turn the pelvis down so the spine lengthens towards the front of the mat. Then we're going to lift the chest up a bit more and see if we can take the hands around the outside edge of the foot, or if not, onto the ankle. Now, if you're wrapping your shoulders around and getting a very round upper back, you want to bring the hands a bit further towards you. If you're longer limbed and it's easy to reach the feet, and then allow yourself to do that, but try not to drop the head. Think about trying to keep the spine as flat as you can, lifting up and forwards. I'm going to press very lightly into the heel to lengthen the back of the leg out again, but being careful that we don't press the joint down. Belly is drawn in. And then we'll release. And we'll take it to the second side. So just drawing that right leg in, sitting up tall, a little bend in the knee, the thigh turns in internally, flexing the foot, hands onto the shin, we lift up first, tilt the pelvis over the thigh, see if we can find the hands around the feet, and then draw the chest up and forwards, keeping the head in line with the rest of the spine. And then if you have the space or the ability, you can start to press the heel away again, just to straighten out the back of the leg a little bit more. But you notice that as you do that, the spine doesn't move. So you don't feel like you're coming deeper into the pose. The feelings of work in the spine don't increase. Back of the leg knows it's doing some work. And we release. And bring ourselves back up. So almost there. I'm going to bring the feet together in for something called Baddha Konasana. So we're going to start off by bringing the heels close into the body and letting the knees hang out to the side. And you either hold on to the ankles or you hook your index finger, middle finger around the big toe. And then try and lift the spine up. Have the feet, the soles of the feet are touching. Draw the shoulders back, let the chest lift, belly drawn in. And see if you can encourage the knees to move down towards the floor. So you have to really connect with the groins to let them open up and move around a little bit. Otherwise they'll just, become a little bit rock hard and we won't move anywhere. So it's a balancing cooperation of the body and mind to work and to release. This is almost a physical metaphor for a yogic lifestyle. Working together, working hard, finding harmony, cooperation. And then we'll finally release. Use the hands around the back of the thighs to lengthen out. And we're going to come into Shavasana. So it's not going to be a hugely long Shavasana, but if you want to stay on the floor and fall asleep in the twilight hours of the evening, you can do. And we'll just roll the spine gently down to the floor. If that's what the body needs. That's what the mind needs, then it's probably better to work with it if you can. Going to lengthen the spine out, so just wriggle everything out a little bit and then see if you can slide the heels to the corner edges of the mat. Let the toes roll out. And I, this evening, going to bring my left hand onto the belly, between the belly button and the groin. And my right hand will be in the area of that V of the ribs, where the moves in towards the chest bone. The eyes closed, let everything sink, relax. And we'll slowly start to breathe a little deeper, stretching the fingers and the toes, letting the wrists and the ankles get some movement. And then we're going to take one of those deeper breaths and let ourselves stretch out as we exhale. And then slide a heel at a time gently in towards the body. And take a final little hug. Stirring the knees or rocking, whatever feels good. Following your instincts. From here, as we exhale, roll gently onto the right. Stay in that fetal position just for a couple of breaths. And then we'll take a breath in, use the hands to press into the floor on the exhale. Move ourselves very gently back up to sitting. Just crossing the legs or sitting in a comfortable position. Yourself to wriggle out the spine and the shoulders and the neck. And then finally bring the hands in towards your heart. Take a deeper breath in. And as the exhale begins, slowly drop the chin towards your chest. Let the belly draw in and the natural bow forming your spine. Seeing your practice for the evening. Breath comes in and builds the spine for you. Eventually the head lifts and the eyes open. Namaste. Have a lovely evening. Thanks for joining me.